Hello and welcome to Playing to Win, a weekly podcast produced by My Disability Sport South Australia. We will share stories and experiences about life with a disability and the important role health and well-being plays for us. Our army of guests will also share their experiences as well as the highs, lows and everything in between. My name is Tim Haggis and I am joined by Stephen Palmer, Australian blind cricketer and rising tennis star, and Candice Kennedy, national road tandem bike champion and #1 female blind tennis player in Australia. And we are all playing to win. Good evening everyone and welcome to Playing to Win. Tonight it's me, Tim Haggis, and the other co-host, Candice Kennedy. How you going, Candice?
I'm good. How are you going, Tim?
Good. It's a funny thing, this show, because the three of us are supposed to be hosting it, but we have yet to have one where all three are on at the same time because of various things going on in our lives. But tonight it's you and I, and I'd like to talk to you about your life and all the things you've been through. How about you tell me a little bit about your sporting career to start with?
Yeah, so obviously I started off playing softball. That was more so my chosen sport. And then around the ages of 17 and 18, I started to notice that I couldn't see the ball anymore. That led to this path and journey to finding out that I was going blind. I had no idea that it was happening. I had done various tests on my eyes saying that they were healthy and they were fine. And then come 2019, I was diagnosed with a macular dystrophy called Best disease, which essentially took all my central vision, and now I rely on peripheral and side vision, which then also led me down the path of finding out about blind sports through a connection that I had and a friendship that I made with Rachel Learcraft. And she let me know that it's not the end of my sport, and let me know that there is such thing as blind sport. And to which I was amazed at. I was like, you're kidding me. There's blind people playing sport. Like, how in the world does that even work?
Well, hang on a minute. Let me just stop you there because I want to know, we've got a lot to go to before we get to blind sport and all the great people you met when you entered the blind sport world. Can you remember the first day that you thought, I can't see that? Should I be able to see that?
Yeah, so I think one of the first times was actually at a very young age. I was about 11 or 12, and I was reading this novel, and I realized that I couldn't really read the novel, and everyone else in my class sort of sped through all of their novels and excelled in reading and things like that. And I just sort of stayed stagnant, and my whole life I've only ever read one novel.
Was it that one?
Yeah.
Which book is
And
the one book you've read?
I'm going to butcher the name of it. I think it's called Desperado, and it's about a little mouse. It's about a mouse that... Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. So you've read one book anyway. You've ticked that off, but you're obviously pretty sporty. So I guess that you've got that to compensate, because you were an elite athlete. That's not just a young girl playing sport. Where were you headed with your softball career?
I started playing softball around about 9, and then got very serious around the age of 12. I started making state teams, and by the age of about 14, I was selected in an Australian side to go over to America and obviously represent Australia. And over there, they were offering out scholarships. There was obviously certain requirements, and you had to make sure that your studies were at, a BA level, and you would get the scholarship to be able to go over to America. And that's what I was looking to do. So I sort of had my life kind of planned out by the age of probably 14, 15.
So you had an international sporting career. So what was your job in the softball team? Because softball is a little bit like baseball, isn't it? Except you bowl the ball or you throw the ball underarm, don't you?
Yeah, it's funny that people say that, because I don't think that they're very much alike when you actually play them. So I have played baseball when I was pretty terrible at it, actually.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's a foreign
because in
game to us.
yeah, in softball, it's a bigger ball than a baseball, and the field is smaller in softball. You play with different sized bats and things like that. But my role in softball, I was a pitcher to start off with, and then I went to catching and third base, and I was pretty dominant in catching and third base by the
So you were
time I
doing
was.
okay at 14, catching the ball and seeing the ball coming.
Yeah, yes.
But
Yeah, so
reading was
fortunately,
hard. Like reading was harder. So maybe it was
yeah.
just the beginning of what was evolving, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
So when did it start to affect your softball playing?
So it started to affect my softball probably around 17. I had my mum as my coach at the time, and I was on the field playing third base, and we had a girl come up who was a really good batter, and she hit the ball, and I heard the ball get hit off of the bat. And I was focusing more so on everyone's movements, and everyone's movements seemed to gravitate towards my side of the field, but I didn't see the ball. And then next minute, this is all happening in a couple of seconds, like within like 2-3
Yeah.
seconds. And I just feel this whoosh past my face. The next thing I know, I have my mum calling time and telling me to get off the field. And I'm walking off the field thinking, wow, that I didn't see that ball coming directly at me at all. I didn't react. There was nothing there visually to indicate that this ball was coming towards me. And my mum sort of pulled me off and was like, what's going on? Like, this is not normal. Like, that was my last game of softball ever.
Really? So it
And
was that
yeah,
scared you, did it?
it scared me enough to not ever want to put myself in that position again.
So can I ask you
Um,
one thing about what you just said before about when you heard the sound of the ball hitting the bat or you saw it, you started watching where the fielders were moving to? That
yeah.
wouldn't be a normal thing for a softball. You watch the ball, don't you? Isn't that?
Yeah.
So you were
Yeah.
doing that subconsciously because you couldn't see where the ball was and you're watching people's reaction like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I was starting to adapt in ways that I didn't even know I was doing. I couldn't comprehend what was going on because I had no reason for anything, and I was always looking for a reason, and I was going to doctors and things like that constantly about my eyes, and they never found anything. So it was quite bizarre.
So obviously other
Um,
things were happening in your life apart from that incident that made you wonder what was going on.
everyone has stuff that happens in their life, and I was weighing up other things that had happened, sort of fell to them for reasons.
Yeah.
And then it was only until 2-3 years later, sorry, finding out that none of them were the case at all.
So when you go to read an eye chart, because obviously they take you in there and they say, read the chart. What were you able to read?
It was a very, like, when I think back to when I could read the chart, I could read pretty well. Obviously, when it got down to, you get down to like the fourth or fifth line, I was struggling.
Yeah.
And then sort of fast forward to when I was 19, when they asked me to read the chart, that I couldn't read anything from the back of the room. Yeah, and that was
Is that like
very
6 meters?
surreal.
That's 6 meters away, is it? From the back
Yeah,
of the room?
yeah.
Yeah. I know, look, there's no question that this has been a hard road for you. And I don't want to focus on talking about that because actually what you've done is you've managed to turn things around really quickly. But there's been good things happen along with this as well, hasn't there? So maybe we should talk about those.
Yeah, of course.
So so you stopped playing softball at 16. And then how long was it before you played another sport?
So I stopped playing softball at around 16, 17, and I didn't play sport up until 19.
Wow, so
And
3 years off.
yeah, so I didn't go back out to anything. My confidence was pretty shot after everything. And obviously I knew something was wrong, so that I wanted to find that out before I put myself in any danger again. Obviously the result of that was finding out about my eye condition.
Yeah.
And the next sport that I ended up playing was tennis, blind tennis.
Yes.
So
you remember the day you met Rachel?
I can't remember how I actually connected with her, but I do remember sort of reaching out, and I actually went to go see her perform at a primary school. There was something happening with SASB. My timeline's a bit warped because obviously it was a very hard time. And so I ended up watching her perform and then sort of approached her afterwards and found out that she was actually doing singing lessons, and she offered me to come and do some singing lessons with her. And from that, I started doing singing lessons every week.
Yeah.
And then as we sort of got to know each other, she found out sort of about my sporting history and things like that, and opened up that pathway for me.
So she really got you heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
definitely.
She's a pretty special person, as we all know. And so obviously in a future episode of Playing to Win, you'll be able to sing a song. What do you think? It's called This Time We're Playing to Win. I'll get the backing music for you.
Yeah, you've got a band, don't you?
Yeah, well, we'll work something out. Maybe our Christmas edition or something.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
We'll stick to sport for now. So you've come out to tennis. You've come out and seen a whole bunch of people playing a sport that none of them can see very well. And what were your first thoughts of that?
My first thoughts were, how have I never known about this? It was more so the thoughts of the ignorance that I had, that I didn't know that even blind sports were a thing, that this wasn't publicized anywhere or anything like that. And then I remember walking out onto the court with a couple girls and instantly feeling so validated and comfortable that I wasn't the only one who struggled, and I wasn't the only one that still wanted to be an athlete and be looked at like an athlete and have a sense of being somewhere. It was really surreal. And then actually starting to play it was like, oh, this is actually really difficult.
So what was it like seeing and hitting the ball when you first started? Because we can quickly lead on to your feats, but when you first hit the ball, because you never played tennis, had you? So
no, I'd never ever played tennis, ever.
Yeah.
When I first felt the ball and everything, it was like, wow, okay, this is very light. It's the same size as a softball. So I felt a little bit familiar. Yeah. And then once you actually start playing and you start hitting the ball, you very quickly work out that you have to be quite tentative with it. Because obviously it's a very light ball, and whatever you do, any amount of force or power, it's just going to like fly.
So when you first start playing blind tennis, you overhit. And because the thing is, you've only got, what would we say, 2/3 the size of a normal tennis court. So you really are playing, like you have to learn to lighten off a bit on your shots and things like that to get it in. And that takes a little bit of time, but it also, the ball travels slower. You get more time to react and see the ball.
Yeah.
That helps out a lot, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So pretty soon after you started playing tennis, there was a tournament. How'd that go for you?
That went better than I had anticipated at all. So only after a couple weeks, or it was a couple. Was it a couple weeks or a couple months? It was in.
I reckon it was about
October.
6 weeks. I'll help you out here because I was there too. So I reckon.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about it, but I think your first day was my first day.
Right.
I think I came out on the 2nd of September. And I think the tournament was, I know it was my wife's birthday. So it was the 24th of October. So let's say 6 weeks after you started.
Yeah. So it was a very short amount of time to be able to actually understand the sport itself. And we had our tournament come up. To my surprise, I went straight through to the final and versed Mark Haskett. And,
but mate, before you got to the final, you had some pretty quality opposition, didn't you? In the lead up to that,
of
in
course,
the semis?
Of course,
you smashed me, right? So I think it was 4. We played at 4, so you beat me 4-1, pretty convincing. And your serving was, I think, the best part of your game. You were very, very good with your angles and hitting the lines. So because we didn't have the chance, because if the ball hit the lines, you get less time to react because you can't see it till it's hitting the ground. And that you did serve really, really well. So it was, for someone who hadn't played, no one would have known you'd never played before. So effectively playing Mark Haskett in the final makes you national female champion.
Yes.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there is opposition around. You know, it's not like a thing. We play in mixed because there's not enough to make 2 divisions. You're a national female blind tennis champion. Anything else going on for you?
Yeah, so around the same time I picked up tennis, I started tandem cycling. I went out for my first training session with a group of people, and they're called the Tandem Project. And so I went out for my first ride. We did a cruisy ride, and I was enjoying myself and everything, and didn't really know what to expect out of it. I'll just slide in there that I'd never really ridden a bike before either. We'd got back to base camp, and they said, "Oh yeah, you've done really well, blah blah blah." I went home, and then that same day, that night, a couple hours later, I get a call. It's from the lady that was running it, and she's like, "So you've done really well, and we were just wondering like how serious you want to be." And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, "Oh, I've had this question before in sport, like I don't know where this is going." And I was like, "Oh, well, I really enjoyed it, and I would like to be a bit serious with it." She suggested, "Well, we've got a national championships coming up in 12 weeks. Would you like to train for that?" Like, oh
well,
my
that's 6
goodness.
weeks longer than your tennis preparation. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. So all I thought at the time was, why not? There was no reason to not try. Obviously, I accepted the offer, and I had no idea what I was about to submerge myself into. Cycling is a whole other world of discipline, and it was only 3 months of training, and very, very hard and tough trainings, like getting up at ridiculous hours of the morning when the sun's not even up, and going for 60-kilometer rides.
Yeah,
and
no fun.
a lot.
You like that sort of thing, getting up at 6 a.m. and going for a bike ride in the dark?
Yeah, to be honest, I actually really enjoy it, and did enjoy it. It was something that I'd never done.
But you're still doing it, aren't you? But not so early in the morning now.
Yeah. I'm actually sitting in my cycling gear right now because I just got back from a ride.
You've been out riding today, have you?
Yeah. Just went out for a little ride just to get out of the house. I've been studying all morning, so.
Oh, well, that's another thing we can talk about. So you hit the nationals. What was your event? And how far did you have to ride, and how'd it go?
Yeah, so it was the National Championships road race.
Yeah.
And it was a 66K ride.
Ooh, pretty far.
Yeah. It's quite funny, actually. What ended up happening was they had to cut the race short, and our opposition ended up dropping out on the 3rd lap. So you do 6 laps of this.
You go all that
course
way and drop out on the 3rd lap.
Yeah, and by this point, we didn't know that we were 18 minutes ahead.
So you were already nearly 20 minutes
we were
ahead.
We were a lap in front. We had no idea of, sort of where we were sitting. And then we found out that, our opposition pulled out, and we were sort of like, oh, okay, this is strange. And so we've gone to do another lap, and we've crossed over the line with 2 other paras, and they've waved the flag and said, like, you're finished. And we thought that they were talking to the paras next to us.
Yeah.
So, because we're like, no, we've still got a whole other 2 laps.
Yeah.
So we go around and we do this lap, and then we come back and we finish that lap, and then we're on our 6th lap. The start of every lap is the climbs.
Yeah.
So half of it's climbing, half of it's descending. And we're on our first little dig of climbing. And, there's people telling us on the sidelines as well, like, your race is over, you've won, like you're finished.
Yeah.
And I have a very determined, passionate pilot who just will not give up.
No.
She's absolutely amazing. We then turn the corner and start doing our 2nd climb, and we have this motorbike come up to us and essentially say to us, your race is over. What are you guys doing? Like, you're finished. And she's discussing, I'll say discussing, I won't say arguing, I'll say discussing with the motorbike.
I think we both know her, don't we? So
yeah, she's discussing with the motorbike about, no, we've got 66 Ks. This shouldn't be the end of the race.
Yeah,
like we should be finishing. And by the 3rd person of us telling us that we've finished and we've won, I've mentally switched off, and we're on our climb while my pilot is discussing with this motorcycler that we haven't finished yet and we still need to go ahead with our race. And I'm sitting on the back thinking, oh my goodness, I am hurting right now. Like my pilot's discussing something with the
Yeah, she's not
motorbike.
even breaking a
What am I
sweat yet.
doing? So she actually ends up sending him back down
Yeah.
to make sure that the race is over, and he ends up coming back up telling us, yes, it's confirmed, your race is over, you've won.
Yeah.
So we actually had to get escorted off of the track by a motorbike back down to the starting point, and it was an awesome
But
victory.
you are the winner, right? You're
Yeah.
the winner. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was no initial crossing the line and going, yeah, we won.
And hands in
It
the
was a bit-
air and woo, none of that. Just yeah.
Yeah.
So do you
but
know what
it
time
was
you rode it
amazing,
in?
yeah.
Do you know how quick you were?
I don't know how. I don't want to put a number out and say that it's wrong. I just know
Okay.
that
No, you don't have to. I just thought if you knew, you might say it.
Yeah, no, I'm not quite sure, but I just know that we won by 18 minutes.
So, ladies and
So-
gentlemen, what that means is that Candice Kennedy is a dual national champion in cycling and tennis, right? And the only reason she's not in the three sports is because she hasn't done a third sport yet. So we'll have to find out what that's going to be. I was kind of hoping it'd be triathlon, but you don't like swimming, do you?
I think I've got enough eggs in my basket at the moment.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we haven't got like endless amounts of time to just be running around riding bikes and playing tennis. We were meant to go, so we were meant to go to Italy and play tennis, and we didn't go. So that kind of threw our year out a bit, didn't it? So that was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, of course.
That'll be another opportunity in the future for you. I guess that tennis is a bit more eyesight dependent, but bike riding, because you're on the back of the bike, you know, it doesn't really matter how much sight we've got, does it? We need to have a pilot that can see where they're going.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about cycling is that you don't have to rely on your vision. You are just on the back of the bike. It's so freeing to know that you don't have to rely on that vision to be able to show what you can do.
Yeah.
The pilot does all of that.
Yeah.
All of the visual stuff, and it's an amazing machine for VIs and blind athletes.
So you don't have a tandem bike? You've got a bike now, or?
I'm actually currently borrowing one from the program.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get my own bike soon.
Expensive as buying a car, isn't it? So
yeah, a tandem bike can be, if you're buying one new, you're spending at least $7,000 probably.
Yeah, it's a lot of money,
So
isn't it? And you really need your own bike that you know is yours and you can ride it and it does what you want it to do.
Exactly, yeah.
So if anyone out there, because we've got a lot of listeners out there with businesses or they want to promote their business, get behind Candice. She's the marketing guru. Like, she'll go out and speak for you and promote your business if you buy her a tandem bike. Would you not? You'd do that, wouldn't you?
Of course. Of course. Anything, you name it.
All right, well, there you go. Well, no, just public speaking and product stuff like that. Now, last but not least, you're studying. So how's that going?
I had a bit of a rough time with schooling and things like that, obviously adjusting to my vision and learning how to be able to study. I've decided that I want to go to university, so I'm currently studying to sit a stat test to be able to see if I can get into uni.
And what are you going to do at uni?
I'm looking at psychology. Anything sort of down that pathway I'm looking at the moment.
So have you got a bit of a you want to help people, maybe people, you can think that people are going through some tough times, you can really identify with that and help them through it?
Yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine.
Well, good. And so when will you be able to go for the test?
Within this month of June, if I'm studied up and ready to sit the stat test, it would be ideal for me to do it now. If I want to do it any later, I'm not sure when I'll be able to do it as of this year, but I will have to apply to be able to do it online. And there's this whole other process that you'll have to go through because obviously they're not doing the testing online after June, I think it is. It would be ideal for me to sit it in the next 2 weeks or so.
You're smart enough to be at uni for sure. I've known you for a little while now and I see you as someone with great potential. Whatever you put your mind to, you're going to get there. You come from the background of sport where you learnt that determination and you've got a good family around you and good people that care about you and you're pretty determined, you know, so we can see that. And that's why Steve and I honoured to have you as one of the hosts of Playing to Win. Hopefully we're going to all three of us will get together at some point. We actually had a comment on Facebook today because we put the first 2 episodes up, me interviewing Steve and Steve interviewing me. And the question is, where's Candice? So I said, well, she's coming
I'm
now.
here now.
She's coming along now. The next episode, all three of us are speaking with Rachel Learcar. So we did that one a little while ago. So hopefully all the topics are relevant. But thanks heaps, Candice, for coming along and being part of the show and telling your story.
Thanks for having me.
And I know you must get sick of telling the story over and over again, but it's actually going to be a story that helps a lot of people with some parts of their journeys in their life, because what you've managed to achieve in such a short time is pretty amazing.
Yeah, of course. And everyone's capable of that.
Well, they are, but some people don't believe or realise or know. I mean, certainly some things are down to luck, like meeting Rachel maybe was. Eventually you would have your way towards something, no matter what happened, because that's the sort of person you are. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens next, really. So, yeah, things are good. And I believe tomorrow morning we're playing tennis. Is that true?
We are. We very much are.
Now, Mark told me 9:30. Right, is that actually the real time that you're going to get there, or should I get there at 10?
Yes. No, 9:30. Yeah, 9:30. Yeah.
All right then.
Thank you for tuning in to Playing to Win. We hope you will join us next time. Search for our podcast on the Australian Disability Sport website, australiandisabilitysport.com.au. Follow the updates on Australian Disability Sport's Facebook page. Thank you, and just remember, we're all playing to win.